What did I teach you?
You are Duke of New York. You're A number 1.
I can't hear you.
You are the Duke of New York. You're A number 1.
So when they say happy solstice, they're really saying sanctus solstitium, which means the holy standstill, which represents the phasing into the what they call the deep winter until its polar complement, which is then the vernal, which is the true year, or new year, in March, in what they used to call Astarte, that we call Easter, which is also Aster and Asher. Asher, which is the masculine aspect of Asherah, who in the pre-Bible is God's wife, who was distranslated into the so-called bibliotext or biblios or Sanctus Biblius under a code name called the Tree of Life. That, what we just is what they call a Masonic or Freemasonic secret. That whenever you see the world tree, who they call Yggdrasil in the Old Norse, or Kumeyama in the old Palenque texts of the people they refer to as the Olmec, which we know are the Shi, which are the ancient Asiatics of America, right? So God can't have a wife, you see what I'm saying? Or couldn't have one in the new epoch in which the immateria, the occult aspect of life, became the predominant aspect, and thus what used to just be open was now agreed upon to be somewhat concealed, and a pastoral blanket of reality put over all of that. So Asherah, which in the negative occult is referred to as Lilith, who is mistakenly in that nonsense that they sacrifice people to, they make Lilith Adam's wife, when in actuality Lilith would have been his mother, because Lilith was the negative aspect of Asherah, see, and Asherah represented the tree of life that sat in the midst of the garden. You see what I'm saying? Which is why the mother of the zodiac, Virgo, is always seen in a field or a garden. You see what I'm saying? Why the virgin, Virgo, right, had to give birth to the Christ. So so this oppression, right, of the feminine aspect was the only way for them to redo what they needed to be able to pull forth the energy from the feminine aspect, which is the material aspect of Allah, right? To bring into physical reality. And then you have the all-knowing aspect of that. Like, I don't know what it's like to give birth to a child, but as having 3 children and seeing them actually be born, you understand that there's an aspect of a place where they can go that I can, right? Just like them, the woman, seeing that there's elements or places that I, as a man, can go and she can't. That doesn't necessarily mean that we are at war or not equal. It just means that the space that we have to do you know what I'm saying, what we have to achieve is different, and therefore creates different paths. But what makes things go forward is how those paths merge to create societies. Like, think about it. Like, as much as people hate Nazis or whatever, right? There was a whole bunch of females that supported that. Like, Hitler had a mother. Hitler had a girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? Like they supported, like, people supported that. Not just men, not just white males. You dig what I'm saying? Like when I first did this thing back in the days called Black Nazis, this tape lecture series, you know, talking about this phenomenon that people was like, oh, this is crazy, blah blah blah. People thought I was bugging. But I would say, however, it doesn't change the fact that this reality of self-hatred naturally creates the space for insanity to become the normality. And that's the space that we're in. We are in the time, like in the book 1984, which is banned, by the way. I don't know if y'all try to ban this book. But you know, you could but the movie's out. Like, you know what I'm saying? But whatever. This is the part where they say we're at war with Eurasia, and then everybody be like, "Oh, we hate Eurasia," and then the next day they'd be like, "Eurasia is our friend. We're against," you know what I'm saying? These people, and then everybody's like this, just like in the Wizard of Oz when he said, "Okay, today is purple," and then everybody's purple, and then one day at the end of the dance they be like, I think it's blue. Then everybody's blue. Like, this is the reality that they are creating to be normal. So the seesawing back and forth, oh, does it work? Will it work? Is it going to kill? Is it not? No. They're trying to create a world in which if you have an opinion about your own body, right, or what you want in it, all of a sudden that's a problem. Yet why? See what I'm saying? Yeah, they switching it. So you gotta understand, if they switching it, it's to the point where we're closer to the actual rapture than we think. It may have happened already. I'm of the opinion that it all ended in 2012. Which is why I wrote it down in the book and stuff, so I could go back and look at it. Now I'm putting it back out and see like how much of the stuff came true. And a lot of it that I wrote about came true. Not to say that I myself am a prophet, but it is to say that based upon, like, people say, for instance, put a pin in that. You have an AI, right? An AI exists by creating all of the data that you can about a specific thing and then tabulating it in different representations. And each representation of this particular situation creates a scenario and a certain outcome. And then all of those outcomes are tabulated to be able to get one thing. You know what I'm saying? So it's the same thing, but that's still based on human thought. That's still based on how we identify and organize information. 95% of the stuff that you analyze daily, you don't even think about consciously. You're not even tabulating it. Like, you're not talking to your skin on some like, okay, I'm about to walk through this dust cloud. I want all of my pores to, I want all of you pores to close up, so that way I can
more.
It creates a backlash in which people don't know how to tabulate. You don't know how your skin reacts. You're not speaking to it on a day-to-day basis. You're just allowing it to do what it do. And you're hopefully putting things on it or in it that are going to allow it to do that easier. So we used to have things back in the days that used to allow us to manufacture that stuff in real time from the ether. That's what these types of things are. These Nautilus cups that you see back in all of these ancient pictures and stuff. See all of the Moors and the people in the back. See them all over. This is the same thing that you see the Baby Yoda in the Mandalorian flying around. These are you'll see them in different aspects. They also used to be called holy thrones. These are some of the old technology stuff that they was using. And you see the elixir stuff that's coming out of it, right? Like this is in its the stuff like in the vases and all of that. See? Sitting on the American lion. You see what I'm saying? Holding the serpent. You see? So right here, I'm showing you an image of the goddess, or what you call Aseer, who is the mother or the wife of so-called God, or the symbolic, metaphysical, whatever you want to call, version of the feminine aspect of that which is created, or which cannot or will not or has been or will not be created. This is that aspect, and this was always the aspect that was used in that. And so you see it right here. See the Nautilus cup? It look like the same one. And you usually find these in what they call gilded settings, like this. So as you see, if this is an image of America, this is what America, or images of what America was said to be like, or actually was at the time. You see the philosophers in the back, under the royal arch, under the turtle, right? So the world tree, or who they call Asherah, under the Hebrews, right? The Hebrews, in their translation from the Canaanite, took it and then made her, or basically made God Yahweh. You know what I mean? So they can have, I guess they stamp on what it was. Because to us, as the descendants of the Canaanites, we were referring to it as El, or Elion, or Elohim, or El, or Al. You know what I'm saying? So this, like everything else, gets flipped up once we go into the deep dirt nap era, right, in which they remake or refasten the calendar on us. So I was watching some video, I think it was on National Geographic, and it was with the Portuguese, and they were talking about, actually they were talking about Vasco. That's what got my attention. It was all about Vasco da Gama. For those that don't know, Vasco da Gama was a great, how do you say, Portuguese explorer slash like prince. But what got my attention was that I had first learned about Vasco da Gama by reading Ivan Van Sertima's Golden Age of the Moor, right? And reading Golden Age of the Moor, he talked about how Vasco da Gama and original Portuguese monarchy were all Moors, of all basically, European black nobility. And so, really fascinating because he was also a heavy navigator because he was at one time captured, either captured by the Moors proper, or was put under some sort of situation where he had to be schooled by them in navigation. So in that, he was able to circumnavigate and get to places other people wasn't able to get to. So eventually, in reading about it, they were buried at the cemetery. And at the cemetery, it said that they were buried, like him and a couple of other people were buried in 645 AD. So that's crazy because in the Ivan van Sertima book, he said that this Portuguese Empire situation took place in 16. You see what I'm saying? With the one. So because this is what I'm saying about the proof about them adding 1,000 years, taking everything away, which then if we put in greater context, under, let's say, if you go by that calculation, then we would be in the year 1021 right now. If we go by the year of the old Moorish calendar, right, it would be, I think, like 1441. If we go by the Asiatic calendar, then it's like astronomical, so then that's like 15,602 or something like that. However, the 2021 situation, that whole situation can't be real because the one, like I said, was added in the 900th year, which we call 1900. I'll try to dig up the picture I had again of the arch in Germany that had the original date and then the one comparative next to it, which was from the next year after the conflict or whatever. They flipped it and now everybody was doing the one. I also was looking at certain like inscriptions in where the one is not even a one, where it's like it looks like an eye. You know what I'm saying? So they have like actual eyes taking the places of ones because they wasn't even using it, because it didn't exist. So that would then mean, in all honesty, then the time that we perceive as, let's say, the ancient world was like really not that long ago. Like really not that long ago. You know what I'm saying? Like not even a couple of thousand years ago. I mean, like if the year 1900 was actually the year 900, then the whole thing is flipped. Then that means the temporal thing that they put on everybody with the calendar thing, this makes sense as to why everywhere in the world, right, everybody is using the same clock though. You know what I mean? Like you're in different time zones, but on Earth, everybody's using basically the same clock. So what that says is that time on a physical concept in us being able to tell it or subscribe to it is definitely fixed. Yet it's only fixed under whatever age you happen to be fixed in. You know what I'm saying? And it seems that the enemy, whatever you want to refer to that is, has understood how to manipulate that to get us then to go from our calendar to his. Because that's, I feel like, when everything go crazy. Once one society adopts another society's calendar, then that's it. Like the Ethiopians is still on their date. Like everybody got their date. And if you notice, everybody with their own dates got their own country still. Isn't that ill? Ethiopia still got their own country. What's his name still got their own country. Everybody that followed their own calendar got Israel took over the country, put the country on the calendar they wanted, and then that's that. and then bombing these niggas out of existence because they won't accept the calendar. So if they doing that for a calendar, what you think they're gonna do is people with this fake thing until it come out that it's not real. I mean, until it's accepted that it's what it is. Because it's not going to be accepted till they activate or whatever they're going to do with it. But until then, They're gonna keep duping people into thinking it's something different. Like everybody was talking about Tartary, and I've showed before when we're talking about that, we're talking about ancient Asiatic people. So whatever these white people was telling you, their narrative is that there was a society of advanced giant white people that were able to unilaterally have the same type of giant architecture around the world, thus provide free energy for everybody, and it was all peace. But if that was the case, then where'd they go? Why are they not here now? What happened to them? They giants? You mean the white man could get rid of giants? You know what I'm saying? Like, and we know it's real because there's the whole thing about the SEAL team that they had to shut up and get rid of because they revealed the giant that they found in Afghanistan, which is why this nigga had to pull out. Y'all heard that story, right? Y'all heard that story? Okay, for those people that didn't hear the story, this what do you call it? Clip notes. Your mans and them sent these people out there to hold down a contingency of people that was moving dope. The last of the poppy seed, whatever they're getting out. And while they was doing that, they was wondering why a lot of these people was found in winding up dead. Why they wasn't hearing from the teams that was supposed to be coming back with all the dope. So finally they was like, well, send another team out there to find what's going on. So they did that. They sent this team out there to find out what's going on. And when they was getting close to what was happening, they was tracking these people and they found all of these body parts and stuff like that around. So they like, what's going on leading up to this cave? So when they finally get close to the cave, they seeing the remnants of all these different teams. It's like all ripped up, ate up. So they like, well, what's going on? So but right when they refer back to base, one of their mans get impaled by like a giant log spear. So when they look up, they say this giant red man thing that moved mad fast and like basically like killed a lot of them. So somehow or another they killed it, and then maybe 2 weeks later you hear about these niggas. They all of a sudden got to get up off Afghanistan to the point where they leaving people behind. So everybody like, well, why is this going on? Because allegedly these things is being brought up by the who you call them, who's running that stuff now, the Taliban, these people, allegedly bringing these things up and using them in battle and stuff and enraging them to fight against the U.S. or whoever, Taliban, right? So the ancient people that used to live out there and used to put all of that in check was the ancient Scythian people. So when you think Tartary, when you think pre-Tartary and all of that, you think of the people they call the Scythians. The Scythians are related to us through the Hittites. The Hittites are the people you refer to as today as the Turks or the Turkish or Turkanic type people. These are the ancient Scythians. This is what they look like. So they shut down all the other stuff. So when they talk about the ancient pre-Tartarian, like pre-Genghis and all of that, that's these people. These are the ancient founders of what you call ancient Eurasian society. You know what I'm saying? Like these was the ones that was basically going toe to toe with these giants and all that stuff that we be reading about. And they're the ones that created the high culture of the so-called Eastern steppes, what we call Eurasia, what was then descended down to by the time of people like Genghis and them to represent like the wild horse culture. That's when they start to be formally known as Scythians. So the Scythians, like I said, were a great horse culture, and they were the predominant ones that were there to give birth to what you call the Tartarian or Tartary type societies. And these melanated people were very huge. And they were the predominant culture that gave way to the culture that eventually became that of what we call the Huns, the Mongols, the Black Tartars. Like that's why they had different designations for them. That's why they call places out there like the Black Sea and all of that, because that's what these people used to be. The people that live there now are the people that were brought there or were put there after, you know what I'm saying, in the great redux, where everybody got put in different places. Like I said, these are the giants. Eric, Everwood, Evergood, and this one, and Michael the Barefoot. These people were 17 feet tall. You know what I'm saying? Which explains why things were so big. And they were the founders of what became known as the Kazan Khanate. This Kazan Khanate is the originator of all of the stuff in that. These are the ones that built the Kremlin and all of that. This is back when Russia was just a state in Greater Tartaria, which was also known as Great Bulgaria. And all of that was the result of the expansion of Alexandria, of Alexander, on the behest of Philip of Macedon, a black man, and, a melanated man, and Hannibal, of course, another melanated man, in their expansion to the east to unify the trade route that we read about in the book Golden Trade of the Moor. A piece of that route has been focused on by white people because that's the only part they knew. That's called the Silk Road. But there was an American version of that that took place over here in America, in North Carolina, in trade, in Triumph, where the four corners meet. So, like I said, these guys was putting in heavy work, and they were the ones that were the founders, like I said, of the team, like what's his name? Tamerlane, Timur the Great, Genghis, Kublai Khan. You see what I'm saying? All of these types. Right? And they were also related, like I said, on the Turkish line with the so-called Persians. All the way up to, so they were the horse lords. Yeah, these are the guys in Lord of the Rings, right? Who they based the Celtic or the Viking culture on. Because that's them there. Right? So these Scythians, these ancient Bulgarians, right, are descended then from the greater campaigns of Alexander, who after he died gave these lands today that we call the Eastern Balkans or Hungary and all of that. All of that at one time was called Bactria. And that was under Clitus. Clitus of Niger, because his people was from the river Niger. And Clitus was his man's, was Alexander's man's in them. So he was given that and he came and set up a kingdom in what's called Bactria. Bactria becomes Bulgaria. Bulgaria eventually becomes Hungary. See what I'm saying? And so forth and so on. But all of that is melanated up until, like I said, the time when they start replacing people and all of that. And all of these giants got to get up out of here. So by the time Michael the Barefoot and Eric the Red and the rest of these dudes had set up all of that, their descendants now start to trickle down into different sectors. And so Russia, which again was just a state within Grand Tartary, right? Because Tartary was a place, but it was also an empire. So as an empire, it was whatever Tartarians had interest in. This is why you see the same buildings all over the place. But these Tartarians were black dragons. You understand? Were seen as black dragons. And so they were part of what's called the Black Dragon family, who all trace their descendancy again back to the world tree, i.e. Aseer, which is why they technically were a matriarchal culture, but they protected that through the patriarchy, meaning the patriarchy was up front. You ain't really know that. It was mad draconian though. You know what I'm saying? So the empire was under the griffin or the dragon, but the people of Tartary were under what? The owl. And the owl was the ancient symbol of who?
Drake.
Yes. The Moors. Yes.
More.
Yeah. Yes. And so this connection or this unification, like I said, which goes all the way back now. If we really want to trace it, okay, well, how does the Moors of ancient Persia and Tartarian, how do they link together? Well, there was a guy named Darius. Well, before Darius, bless you. Well, before we get to Darius, let's talk about what they call Pers, which today they call Persia. Excuse me, Iran. And when the Persian people allowed themselves to be called Iranians, it was over for them. You dig what I'm saying? They created a space to now go into the new situation. Because remember, none of these countries that you see today existed in the real world, which is the ancient world that was everything prior to 1900, which to the real world people like me and you was actually the year 900. So in the year 900, boom, okay, we're at the year 900, boom, they jumped shit 1,000 years by adding 1,000 years to everything and then destroying everything, segregating everybody by however they did, and then created little pockets of reconstructional stuff and then wove it all together with a couple of world wars. That's what it's looking like to me based upon how all of this stuff is shaping out. But when we get to the root of it, when people are discussing or talking about Tartary, they're also talking about a situation in which energy being freely used throughout the Black Dragon families. And once the Black Dragon families were shut down or were fully flipped, in which now the decoy, let's say WIGHT side, was now running everything. Everything was now flipped in a satanic way. Now, this is not saying that they wasn't doing that within the 1800s and all of that, but it's to say that the symbols and stuff that became the use for them to do that became dominant now. Now it was a situation where they had to keep everything moving. So when we think of the year, let's say 1777, we're really thinking of the year 717. You see what I'm saying? And at 717, during then, Moors was running everything. You see what I mean? This is why there's such a connection today between the Moors and, let's say, what happened in America during the 1700s, and why the Moroccans were the first ones to recognize the Moorish Empire, right? The so-called United States of America as a so-called empire, right? Because the empire, which was, let's say, the Moroccan Empire or the ancient Mauritanian Empire, was still connected to the ancient Tartarian so-called empire, because they were basically one and the same. You get it? And so the historical aspect of this comes to us today when we're given history from the perspective of just the Negro swamp running owned slave, whether blacks being owned or all of that. That was all the incidental stuff that was happening to people that were on the bottoms of the totem pole and were getting caught up in the reconstructional war that was happening towards all of the ancient people. And so for some people to flip that, survive that, they decide to adopt that and they create organizations or heirlooms to basically conceal all of that. The inheritors of this find out about that and then shut it down and then take possession of all of that, then start to sell it amongst themselves. This is where the antique market comes from. You know what I mean? This is one of the pyramids from the place where the Scythians and them type of peoples was at. The ancient Tartarians and these type of peoples was at. But they call this a mountain now. But we know this is a pyramid. It's just one of them. This is why Beyonce and these things be out in Croatia and all of that all the time. Because at one time, Croatia and all of that was blacker than Mississippi. You know what I'm saying? But all of that is under wraps. And the United States and Russia have been fighting over keeping all of this secret since Old Tartary and all of that was destroyed during World War I and World War II. Between World War I and World War II, you had the Crimean War, which was the first mechanized war that then put everybody else at odds. You see? That then started to destabilize the old black European monarchies that themselves were still melanated and still holding sway over huge tracts of land at Europa, as well as in the so-called colonies, which were a part of the old Tatar, what they are calling today the old Tartarian network, which is why all government buildings around the world look the same. Which is why all churches and cathedrals and stuff around the world look the same, which is why all mosques and stuff look the same, because it was the same people during this epoch of time that were transversing back and forth based upon their connection to, again, the ancient Black Dragon families, which were those so-called ancient Tartarian families, which themselves were connected to the ancient Mauritanian, i.e. Moorish families from around the world. But specifically here in America, we had a monopoly because we were the ones that were the most free from everybody else. Why? Because we were the ones that came out of the water after the deluge before everybody else, and then locked everything down under the so-called Moorish Empire before anybody else. You know what I'm saying? That's why. And we did it back in the days. In those days when we did it, we were called Phoenicians or Carthaginians or, see what I'm saying, Fomorians or whatever. Then there was the Lemurians, and then there's the ones from Mu. You know what I mean? So this is why you can have pyramids all over the place, and wherever these pyramids where they're not supposed to be, technically, they all seem to be grown over. Like somebody just threw dirt on them with fertilizer and was like, okay, let's keep this under wraps. And then they moved different people in there that came up with their own legends for what they was and their own customs for what it meant, and that's it. So because a bunch of Spaniards moved into these temples and now reading these from the perspective of Spaniards, we're supposed to believe that when we built them pyramids, that we was just there to build them to cut people's heads off. That that's what it's all about. Like, that don't make sense. Why would you have a building? Why would you build something just to kill people in? The only reason why you would be doing that is to be using the energy of the people you're killing to funnel energy into the building. Why does the building need the energy? The building needs the energy to facilitate whatever it's trying to draw out of the building through the energy put into it. This is why all architects, or the ones that really go far, are the Freemason ones. Because they put the sacred, so-called sacred geometry into it, when it's really just all hex spells through the angles, which we'll get to in a minute. These right here are the Turks that they was fighting in World War I and World War II, in case you didn't know. This right here is the Red Baron. This is the first person to fly in World War I, World War II. When Snoopy was watching the Peanuts and he was talking, Snoopy was always trying to get the Red Baron. It's the Red Baron. It's him. He was a Moor, and he was of the Turkish Empire. But we were taught that all of the Turks and the people that was in there today, Turks and all of that, that they was all there. No, all of those were Serbs and Serbians that were funneled in there after the Great Reconstruction acts and all of that. And then all of this other history was then given, in which black people were then put there as eunuchs to have their penises cut off and all of this other type of stuff. This was the educational system that was put over the entire world. Somehow within a decade of the takeover, they had everybody in the world believing that anybody with dark skin was a slave. But everybody that didn't necessarily have it, that was slaves, wasn't. They had the ability now to aspire to a higher position in society. See how his hands are, right? Islam, or Cosmo L. Whenever you see people in movies or in TV and they have their hands in their pocket like this, or their jeans where their thumbs are sticking out, that's the sign of the master. Go back and look at a lot of 80s TV shows where the niggas wore the tight jeans. You're gonna see a lot of people like Patrick Swayze and these niggas with their hands in their jeans like that. So this is what I'm saying about what was going on back then and what we were taught to believe. You know what I'm saying? This, when they talk about the ancient Chinese, this is what these people look like not even 80 years ago, not even 50 years ago. Look at this. Keep this real quick. Look at this, right? Excuse me. The term monte, right, is mortal. So when you say Montezuma, you're saying Morozuma. Understand? So because Morozuma or Montezuma was a Moorish king, you understand, that put him at odds with those who were trying to establish dominion in the Moorish Empire under a corporate name that we're now calling Spanish. These Spaniards were able to become Spaniards because an Englishman named Charles said that they could be called that to be able to have access to lands owned by Moors in a decree. But it was at the time put out to help Moors who found themselves at a disadvantage under the decree of Philip II, who wanted to fulfill the Inquisition situation to keep them in power and keep their money. And so he said that, you know, they couldn't be known as Moors anymore. So to combat that, Charles, who was in tight with Moors at the time, was like, okay, well, if he's saying that, then I'll put out an edict that says that any Moors who could not be called Moors anymore could now be known as Spaniards or Frenchmen. We read this in a book called Wild Frenchmen, Wild Indians and Frenchified, well, Wild Irishmen and Frenchified Indians. See what I'm saying? Remember, race itself, the concept of race itself, we read, was created by Charles V. You see what I'm saying? He's the one that did it. Up until then, everybody was basically the same until what separated them was their clan affiliation. You know what I'm saying? And so, based upon that, him creating these different races, this is, if you could create different races, then you could create different nations that up until now did not exist. We have to remember, whenever we talking to these scholars and these people, they start talking to us what the Moors had or didn't have, and in what Spain took from them, what we have to remember is that there was no Spain in 1492. We have to remember that. There was no England in 1492. These things were not places necessarily on paper. They were corporate or aggregate possessions of one family. Look at the movie The Kingsman that just came out. Great movie. You know what I'm saying? Didn't really get into the black man, but of course they not. They just showed a scene with why he met him and why he felt indebted to him, because again, he was a white man who came in and killed all his people, and they was all turbaned up and all that. But regardless, in the movie, it shows the relationship between the King of Russia, the original relationship between the King of Russia, the King of Germany, and the King of England, and the deterioration of what led to the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand, which I've talked about before. And at the time, it shows you that they were all cousins and they all had rivalries and they was little kids. And when they got older, those rivalries became, real. And they used real people to deal with it. So one of the things that they would always do was use decoys. You know what I'm saying? And they would have one person who sit on different thrones. And on each throne, he would have a different name. And because the people would never see these people, they would never see them. You automatically think that they white, when in actuality they not. So in reality, Victor Emmanuel III is the guy on the left. But the guy on the right is the guy that we're told in history is Victor Emmanuel III. See what I'm saying? But we're taught his Ethiopian name. Yeah, we're taught his Ethiopian name. But remember, he was the head of the Holy Roman Empire. Y'all know that, right? Just look at him as Rastafari. Look at him, that's his name, Rastafari. Just look at him as that. As Rastafari, based upon his position in the hierarchy of Europa, y'all know that he was the head of the Holy Roman Empire, right?
I think people forget that.
I think people forget that. This is why Elizabeth and them was bowing to him. I don't know if y'all understand that. So what I'm really saying, what I'm really saying is that he was fighting a war against himself. You understand?
But why?
He was fighting a war against himself because he was ousted from Ethiopia. But when he went out of Ethiopia, where did he go? Did he go to Africa? Did he go anywhere in Africa? No. Where did he go? Yes, England, and then Italy. Why Italy? Because in Italy, he's King Victor Emmanuel III, who's at war with Ethiopia. Y'all ain't know? Like, think about it. Like, do the knowledge. Do the knowledge to what was happening. Go back and read the books, man. I've been reading and going through this stuff, yo. All we've seen is the serials with the niggas that look like this. But whenever he's in the room, everybody's on the ground, whether they black or white. Why? Because he was the head of the Holy Roman Empire. And who was he really at war with? Who was he really at war with? Anybody. Who was he really at war with? Because as the head of the Holy Roman Empire, you know what that meant? He is? Thank you. He was at war with the Pope of Rome. Yes. And who blessed the bombs that Mussolini and them was using? The Pope. But Mussolini was black too. Who filmed all of this stuff that we've been watching all of these years? Who filmed it? The same people that filmed this is the same people that created Spider-Man No Way Home. And that shit was incredible. So guess what? So the same way that people was like, yo, that looked real. Why you think they wouldn't do it in reality? This is when they was just popping. Who was running the films? Who was running the films? Goebbels. What happened after What happened after the Nazis and all of that? What happened? Where did they go?
America.
Where did they go? Come on, y'all. Where they go?
Los Angeles.
Thank you. They went to Los Angeles, and what did they do?
Create Hollywood.
They created Hollywood. And what is Hollywood a part of?
The Illuminati. The Holy Roman
And what,
Empire.
right, it's part of it's a part of the Holy Roman Empire. Yes, it is.
Then I want to know why I can't get no.
Come on now. Come on.
You're like, you figured it out. You're not in. Your husband figured it out. You'll never get casted.
See what I'm saying?
Fuck you.
See what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. Let's not act like we don't know.
I can act like I don't know.
Yes. And those are the people that rise to the top.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with us accepting it. That's all I'm saying. Accept it. Once you accept it, you are not tied to it. You got other means now to operate. Which I'm showing you on screen right now is the flag of today, the Republic of Tartary, which is nothing near the whole thing, but let's just say that's what it is today. And then here is a statue. Both of these represent a form of free energy. That's what the symbol represented. So when you ever see the lion with the wings or the griffin with the wings, you're seeing gold and mercury, see what I'm saying, used together to create a form of mercury that's used. But you can Google this online. They found Google red mercury found under all ancient temples. And for some reason, all of the ancient ones had red mercury pools under the temples, the same way we have aquifers and stuff under the cities. All of this had to go. All of this had to be put into cold, into boxes, into the shit that you see in Indiana Jones when he in the storage unit. And he got all of this stuff in the crates. This is all of that. Look, I'm showing you. Look, they playing. Look, Victor Emmanuel. Victorio Emanuele Fernandio. Okay. Victorio Emanuele Ferdinando Maria Gennaro di Savoia. Because remember, they are from the ancient House of Savoy. And the ancient House of Savoy is the first so-called Ethiopian house that established the first what we would call universities at Rome. And it was their daughters, the daughters of those first emeritus's, that were raped by Romulus and Remus and them. And those Sabaean women gave birth to the first royalty of the so-called Roman Empire, Roman state or republic. And then from there, they trace their lineage back to. That's how far they go back to it. And the House of Savoy was that house. And your boy Victor, aka Ross, right, was down with it. He was from November 1869 to December 1974. So we're really saying November 869 to December 947. He reigned as king of Italy from July 29th, 1900, which is 900, until his abdication in May 9th, 946, which was 1946. In addition, he held the thrones of Ethiopia, Albania, as the emperor of Ethiopia. So tell me this ain't the same person. You see how they've been duping us all of these years? You see what's been going on? You see how these niggas got us, excuse my language, effed up? Because the one we thought was Ethiopian was only half. The good half, as they say.
Yeah, Italian.
Yes, he's Italian. And
that's okay.
And that's okay.
Right, but that's where he's
because
from.
That's dope. This explains why they was calling black people, they was calling Italians guineas and all of that back in the days. And the Italian people and the Sicilians, these people wasn't even considered white, until after when? 1946. See that? Because when he abdicated from the European throne, all of those thrones got freed up for white folk. Now they could be Italians. You see? Why they were so thing with us, being black, being moolies and all of that in their family? Why they be ready to go to war for that? You see why now? Remember, moolie mean teacher. It comes from moulay. And the moulays owned a lot of white women as slaves. A lot of Beckys. Lots. And they became the women that repopulated all of Europa into why you got people today that look like, what's his name? Richard Grieco. And what's this other nigga? Whenever you see these Johnny Cash and these type of people, anytime you see a dark-haired white man, you know what that is?
Johnny Cash is a
Yeah, that's why I brought it to dark-skinned white men. Or dark-haired white, so-called white men. This is why in order to be in the mob, they got to trace your lineage all the way back to that first white woman that laid with that first black man. That first Moor back in the 700s. Which really, y'all, wasn't that long ago if we going by the real calendars. You see what I'm saying? You see why they so pressed on us all the time with this? It really freaks it. It really brings a lot of stuff to rest, and why you don't got to really get caught up. And what happens is it changes your vibration in dealing with people day to day. It changes the vibration of how they deal with you, because the same pent up whatever up is up in them, they don't have that. You dig? That's not permeating from you. What's permeating from you is decisiveness. What's permeating from you is, I know who I am, and better yet, I know who you are. And they can't do nothing with that. It's people right now that are panicked You dig what I'm saying? That's panic. That's like under pressure. However, when you've been living like that for so long, it ain't nothing. This ain't nothing. Nigga, I lived through crack, 9/11, AIDS, you know what I'm saying? Opioids, like none of this. Look, this is Johannes, this is Giovanni Moro. Remember, Moro is Monte. How many places in Europe, in Spain, start with Monte in it? Think about it. All of that is Moro. That's how easy it is to make something Moorish Spanish. You see that? Montenegro, Monticello, Montezuma, Montserrat.
Or the girl from that new show on Netflix, her name is Montez. It's a corny show. My son likes it. And she's the only black girl in the whole show of all the Spanish people. She's a black girl, but her name is Montez.
Yeah, see? They always identify you with your ancestor when you're around them. You just don't know. So yeah, so this is who was running Italy. So when I tell you that this is Emperor, look, he was running Italy under Emperor Frederick II. Look, in 12, which is 250. When we say 1250, it's really 250. This is what the Popish crown and all of them looked like back then. You understand what I'm saying? This stuff they doing is new. All this shit is new. None of this stuff is what it really is. This right here is the Pope. This is Pope Joan, the one that they say is fake. All the white people want to think, oh, that was a myth, all of that. No. Pope Joan, this is who this is. And she was a direct descendant and all of that. And she was connected to the Moorish queen of Sicily that when she abdicated, took her place during the Dark Ages. And she became basically another image or depiction of Aseer, who the Christians is calling Mary. I remember back in the days, I was on a bus going to work, and I was on a bus and I was going up. What is that? Going up towards the 4 train at Utica. And I was on the bus and I saw this picture right here, like in a little frame that this roster was selling. And it just caught me. I got off the bus and had to get the picture. And I remember framing it. And I wasn't into none of that or whatever, but it was something about the picture. I remember just stood out. It was the first time I ever seen anything like that. And maybe a couple of months after that, that's when I got into the Morish thing. So what I'm saying is, she is deified like this because she represents the Savoy women or the Sabaean women that was taken by Romulus and Remus to establish what became Rome. This is why Rome never invaded Ethiopia. This is why Ethiopia was never invaded by so-called Europe until the time of Victor. You see what I'm saying? Get this book, The Merchant Kings. It goes into the backstories of a lot of what I'm talking about. But yeah, this is why they was calling Italians guineas and all of that, and why they wasn't none of these people, Italians, Irishmen, Greeks, none of them was considered white under the modern term white until after the war, right around the time that your mans in them abdicated the throne and then freed it up for the Serbians who had just got freed by his Russian cousins in them, which I'll show you in a minute, to do that. Look when Egypt was founded in 1953, man. Look, Spain was founded in 1978, man. You understand what I'm saying? Read the Te Deum Treaty, like get the real translations. These places was not on no maps nowhere like that. What we're seeing as Spain on that is just another depiction of what was on either by the barbarians or the Tartarians. And they was basically the same people. Because they could both trace their descendants back to the ancient Canaanites, who was the ancient Mauritanian races, of which we are the direct descendants of, by the fact that we identify and has proclaimed ourselves to be Moors or Moorish Americans. You understand what I'm saying, my grandmother? You understand some of y'all in class is older than Spain. You understand what I'm saying? That changes the whole situation. So when these white people from Spain is coming over here talking to me about the glorious Spain, like, what are you talking about? You just got there. Y'all niggas just, you understand what I'm saying? Like, this car model's older than the country that these niggas is in. That's what I'm saying. And these people gonna tell me what the ancient Moors in Spain was talking about? How? How is it when the Toledo over here is older than the Toledo over there? How you do that? Look, the Kingdom of Toledo. Here, so remember, I told you that Spain was founded when? 1978. So what we're reading about is Spain, but this is how they flip you with the map. That's why I showed you the Toledo map here in the United States. This is the green map. And then next to this now is the map where they're saying their Toledo was founded. Now we're reading the history of Toledo. But what we're supposed to believe is that the history of Toledo, right, that we talk about is this right here. When really we talking about this right here. Watch. The Kingdom of Toledo, not to be confused with the Visigoth, the Kingdom of Toledo. See? So we're being specific as to where it is. The Kingdom of Toledo was a realm in the central Iberian Peninsula, created after Alfonso of Leon's capture in 1085, which is the year 85. Okay? And it continued existence until 1833, which was the year 833. So from the year 85 to the year 833, this Kingdom of Toledo here in America existed. Its region is currently within Spain, right? It's the history that they're affording the place. In April 1065, Emir al-Muqaddad of Zaragoza besieged Barbosa, aided by 500 civilian knights. The governor, who was the Count of Emir, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to get into all of this, but this essentially is basically what it's saying. Then what happened in 1833? The territorial division of Spain divided the country into provinces. So that means wherever the country had dominion at was a province that it owned. Thus, them flipping it with us over here to, Toledo over here to being Toledo over there. So Toledo over here, what did it say? 1833 territorial division, boom, boom, boom. So then we get the Toledo War, right? From 835 to 836. Basically 1835 to 1836 was fought over a narrow strip of land in Indiana border to Lake Erie, right? Containing the city and the suburbs and the cities of Sylvania and Oregon, Ohio. But they weren't incorporated at the time. So what this is connected to is the Battle of Lake Erie. And we know that the Battle of Lake Erie was when the Moors lost the last naval battle, which also happens to be connected to the the Treaty of Peace. But we'll get to that in a minute. So basically what this says is that at the close of the Toledo War in 1836, we get the establishment of Toledo. right? But the kingdom of Toledo, right, was established, was split apart, right, as a part of the kingdom, divided from the kingdom in 1836? So you mean to tell me in the same year that the kingdom of Toledo is broken up and just becomes a basic province within the country, that the state, that at the same time Ohio then establishes Toledo or incorporates it as a country within its dominion? It's amazing how seamless that is. You know what I'm saying? Like how they could just flip it, right? So here it was talking about that the Al-Muqaddir was fighting against a dude named Sancho II, who was named for his ancestor Sancho the Great. This is Sancho the Great, Sancho the First, King of Pamplona, who was the great-grandfather of Isabella and Ferdinand. And then next to him is a painting of Morozuma, the Moorish king of what we call the Mayans, who, if they had a Moorish king, means that they was Muslims. So as you see, this is not a what you would consider WIGHT Caucasian man. Therefore, neither then were the Spaniards of the day, because he was the chief Spaniard. You see? And as you can see, he bared a resemblance to the very person allegedly that he was against. Morozuma, king of the Moors. Right? Yes, all of those cities is over here. Seville, Saragossa, Mauritania, all of that stuff is here. Especially being that the CIA admitted it. Again, this map comes from the CIA desk. We also have to remember that we Moors, if we fell to anything, we fell to our own greed and our own lack of foresight and our own avarice. You know what I'm saying? Contrary to the popular belief, big ups to Moors in America. Contrary to popular belief, the Spanish amalgamated Moors did not drive the Moors out of their country. It was a territory purchased between two royal families, Caliph Abdullah el-Zagal, who was Balabil's uncle, and Queen Isabella I for the 5 million Maravedi, which is $17 million today, on November 1st, 419. See, that's an I, right? See what I'm saying? Whenever you see the I in the place of the one, remember that that's not a one, that's an I. You know what I'm saying? When it's in the front. 1491, a legal procedure no different than the Treaty of Louisiana and Florida, which for land purchases, which is true. Land purchases. And that land purchase, let's say the Louisiana purchase, that came at the end of the conflict. That's when the land purchases usually go down, at the end of the conflict. What was the conflict that the Louisiana purchase had to go through? The war with him and the Haitians, right? See what I'm saying? Remember, Tuscarora is Old Turkey. Old Turkey exists in the area of Mount Arabia, which is now today known as in Georgia. Tuscarora is North Carolina, or Turkey. And those old Turks, see what I'm saying? That's what I'm trying to say. Like they couldn't change anything. They couldn't really change it. could only just put their little thing on it and then alter the meaning. See what I'm saying? Which is why they had to kill everybody. This is why they had to kill everybody. Literally. That's why lynching became a big business, because it would be no surprise to me that the clans in them that was lynching these niggas was targeting certain people who were landowners that they had perpetual right and trust over their land. And when they were gone, now the white people could say that they were black, Negro, colored, list them as that on the paper, use the 14th Amendment as a means to take jurisdiction, and then use the land and acquiesce that to the state or put it up for state auction, sell it to a corporation or something else. The same way they do today with gentrification. We want this neighborhood. We want to get these niggas out. They done made it pop for some reason. This is where we're going to get in. So the first thing we do, we send the white hippie artists in. Once the white hippie artist is in, they attract the black wannabe hipster self-haters in. When the black wannabe hipster self-haters come, they bring all of the so-called, demographic. Incel demographic with them, because now you got the other white people that seem that, okay, it's these types of whites and white identifying blacks here. It's free for me to be in this area. You see what I'm saying? And what happens is the Negroes become more marginal towards each other. They become more territorial amongst each other, more predatory on each other, until somebody run up, knock one of these hipster people in the head, rob them. Then that's when the whole hammer come down. That's when the legislation come. That's when the white gentrifiers that was already there, acting like they was there for the people, take over the community board, take over the centers, right? Then they start having yoga classes. They start opening up the tea shops. They start opening up the right? The mommy daycare, Pilates classes and all that. And then it's a wrap. Meanwhile, all the niggas that was out there get pushed further out. The ones that get caught, they wind up getting locked up for the offenses. You know what I'm saying? And then they wind up having to come back to the hood years later as drug dealers selling weed and crack or whatever to the same niggas now that's living in their house that they used to live in, that got turned to a crack house, that got taken over, turned back into a high-priced condo, and now here it is. Tell me that's not how it go. I've watched it happen for 48 years. What are these niggas talking about? That's it. That's what they do. That's it. And it's that black and white. You dig what I'm saying? That happened to me. That's how I know. It happened to everybody. You dig what I'm saying? Wait. It is what it is, man. They just put it all up for everybody. So yeah, that's what happened. You use the idea that we're all different, or you know what I'm saying, that they somehow are the ones that's controlling the situation, but they're really not. They just maintaining it. See what I'm saying? You know? Yeah, they just maintaining the overall situation to keep it the way it is. Because like I said, this dude was fighting a war in a sense against himself. And he was able to do it because technically he wasn't really, as much as what he may have wanted for Ethiopia, that was just one of his dominions. But in all actuality, he carried himself more like an Italian, you see what I'm saying, than an Ethiopian, which is what brought him in conflict with the people, which is why he got overthrown. You understand? When the Persians allowed the president to create the corporate name Iranians for them to formally be known as from that point on, that was it for them. They had transitioned fully now from the ancient world into the modern world. And in this modern world, these devils is the ones that dictate what's who or what. Like, why is it that all of the world names for these different countries are spelled with English? Have anybody answered that? Have you noticed that? Why is Russia spelled with English letters? Why is Ghana spelled with English letters? Why am I calling this by this country that's foreign to me by the same English language that was imposed on me by the so-called colonizers, allegedly. Anybody answered that? Anybody figured that one out yet? No. No. Same reason why when you watch movies that take place in different countries, different country time periods, people speak English and you don't really mind for some reason. It's not a deal breaker for the movie. See what I mean? Because of how we've been trained like animals. We have to understand we were trained like animals. We were trained the way you train dogs. We were not given education. And the higher up you went in education to get education and be educated, the more stupid and a slave you probably are. The harder it is for you to make the adjustment, not just to think for yourself, but to look at what the situation is based upon what it is. What this isn't is a democracy. No, excuse me. What this isn't is a republic. Excuse me. What it is a republic. Yet the republic cannot be interfaced with because everybody has been tried as criminals in the democracy. See? So you can't be truly are if you are constantly held to what you're told you are, which is why a declaration of nationality is important. Yet you can do that and still be put in position based upon the fact that the majority of the people that look like you believe the very worst about themselves. And that belief is rubbed off on you, you see what I'm saying? Without you having to do nothing. All because they believe it. You dig? So that's what I mean. You got to think for yourself. Like, you got to understand that the idea that we've been talking about has been going on for so long that it's thing. But they've created a world now where they've got everybody believing that the insanity is the sanity. You have to understand. Putin said when an African becomes rich, his bank accounts are in Switzerland. He travels to France for medical treatment. He invests in Germany. He buys from Dubai. He consumes from the Chinese. He prays in Rome or in Mecca, and his children study in Europe. After that, he may travel to Canada, USA, or Europe for tourism. If he die, he will be buried in his native country of Africa. Africa is just a cemetery for Africans. How could a cemetery be developed? He said that on Al Jazeera, and he's right. And anybody say different is probably somebody exploiting their people. You dig? Like, that's all it is, B. They can't develop this place, and the niggas can't develop nothing here. Like, real talk, like the era where things can happen like that. You notice? Put it like this: the way that you know black people was running the society on the low is because when you check the patent office for designs and stuff like that, the majority, like, there was so many patents that were seized by white people with their name on it that was made by black people that the majority, you could say the majority of patents in there was from black people. At a time when these so-called black people was illiterate slaves. So what illiterate slave knew how to, for instance, how did these brothers who were first generation descended from slaves, how did these brothers build the modern radiator? How did they do that? Who gave these two Negroes steel and metal and books to do that? When the Klan was killing 5 niggas a week, what was going on? Who did that? You see what I mean? Their history don't make sense. It just don't make sense. Like I said in the beginning class, we went full circle. We went, okay, well, who built this? Who did that? Like, it always go back to the same couple of people. And for some reason, these people allowed themselves to become decoys for this agenda, and for whatever reason, been popular. So everybody will talk to you about the Rothschilds. And, you know what I mean? Like, they go stupid with this stuff. But the people that they be talking to us about, these are just like the janitors. And I'm not saying they're not paid. Like, they're astronomically paid and all of that. But in the end, these are like just the slow niggas. These are just the janitor niggas. These are the niggas who carry the jock strap for the real demons that trace themselves back to the Savoys and the rest of these people like I'm talking about. Matter of fact, I'll just give you the names of them before I bust this down. So people will refer to them as papal bloodlines, but the original papal bloodlines are from the original peoples that was already there, and those were put into the slavery system. That's us. See what I'm saying? We're the vanquished dukes. When you read David McRitchie's book, Ancient and Modern Britons, he talks about the vanquished dukes of Europa and old America. He's talking about us, the vanquished dukes and lords and all of that. Yes, George Washington Carver. The only reason why he helped, remember, he was living well. The problem was they had castrated him. This is the story now. I'm not trying to diss the elder. This is the story as to why his voice was that high. His voice was that high was because back in the days, when he reached a certain age, the white people that had taken control of his family, whatever, they gilded him, i.e. castrated him. And so a lot of people thought he was gay, but it wasn't that. It was just allegedly that he had been castrated in that procedure. But that's also why the white people trusted him that was taking over at this time, trusted him so much with everything, because he didn't live as a Negro. Like, they really didn't treat him like that because he came from real original money, pre-reconstruction of war money type shit. You understand? But once the white families, I guess, became the decoy public sides of the families and all of that, he had to do what he did. So Booker T. Washington wrote a letter to him, told him to come down and these niggas need help. And he told him when he got here what the situation was and all of that. So when he got here, he found out that the cotton was destroying the southern agriculture because it leached so much nutrition out the soil. So he created a whole new way to do that and then basically reshape how America had industrialized food and planting resources, and found out that they needed a certain phosphate or guano, that the certain type of guano that they needed was the thing. And at the time, guano, people don't understand this. This is why Morocco is going to run the world could be running the world in the next 30, 40 years, may not sooner, if niggas run out of phosphate. So because phosphate is found most in Morocco right now, the Kingdom of Morocco, they got a stranglehold. So everybody is basically bending over and doing cartwheels to suck a favor from Morocco to be able to do that. But a lot of it is tied up in the Western Sahara. And that's why the Pope and them was trying to bow down and kiss the feet of the North Saharan, Sudan or whatever. So the United States went in and destroyed Sudan, broke it into the North and the South. So this way they could go in the same way they did North and South Korea. They set up a fake joint with that so they could go in there and do their thing. So during the process of that, Morocco claimed jurisdiction over the Sahara, the Western Sahara, and in that forced the hand of one of these other states that wanted. So potentially there could be a war with that. But all of that's to say that the majority of guano phosphate in the world is found in Morocco. So Morocco now is the #1 hotbed for these niggas to try to get popping. So because of that, the phosphate is going up. So that's one thing people can invest in or whatever. Any Moroccan connections, we have, that would be a good look in the long term. But specifically speaking, this is what's happening right now, right? So the families that are really running it are the Borgia, of course, they still around. The Borgia, the Este, the Sasson, the Colonna, the Farnese, the Conti, the Orsini, the Samaglia, open that thing to look out. The Samaglia, and I think the Aldo Bandini. These are the real ones that's running. And all of those are connected again to the older houses like the House of Savoy and the House of Braganza, the House of Oldenburg. These are the old Moorish names of these European so-called dynasties that thing. And then under all of them niggas is the Rockefellers and the rest of them. See what I'm saying? Yeah, the Turks was heavy in North Carolina. We was making it happen. They call them the Sumter Turks. Yeah, because Fort Sumter was a Turkish fort. Just like Fort Negro was a brutish fort that was handed over to the Moors, who then raised the red flag from it. There's a book you can get on it called Fort Negro. So right here is the father of modern Afrocentricity, and why we all messed up. This nigga right here, Melville. This right here is what I'm saying, is to show you that the Moors was actually was the ones running the republic, and then the white people shot them out, and then new people were sworn in. See? Negro office holders were forced to resign, and the leader of the uprising has been chosen as mayor. So whoever became mayor of North Carolina in what year is this? I believe this is 1899, I believe. Just got to look it up. Whoever became mayor, from that point on, it was illegal. Actually, it was illegal from the point of the Civil War, but it is what it is. So Afrocentricity was developed by this nigga right here and his partner named Hershkovitz. This is an example of that, and this is a book that you can get from the library, I think, to this day, that basically has been proven that the things that they've been giving us in most positions and most vaccines and stuff was basically placebos. That they basically was fooling people into believing that the vaccine was healing them when it was really a placebo. That's why they do the double blind trials and all of that. But see, with this new thing, they never did those. Because when they did them on the mice and all of that, all the mice wound up dead. So they figured, well, human beings is mice now, so we won't say nothing. Yes, they call this the Wilmington Race Riots that started from Wilmington, Virginia, and wound up in Tulsa. That was the reconstruction. That was the taking over of the government. This is the coup d'etat, which resulted again by 1871. But remember, behind this is people that look like us as well. It's opening up the gates and shit, letting them do it. So in my opinion, I don't think in the modern era that these so-called blacks are ever going to get together. That's not what I see happening. What I see is individuals establishing situations in which now we can create our own corporations that fulfill our own needs like everybody else. And then leverage those corporations in terms of lobbying situations to then, if need be, get your own people elected to make things happen who happen to be Moors. Stop worrying about Moors on the internet talking about, oh, you shouldn't be voting, you shouldn't be doing this. Whatever, man, whatever. Make sure that you maintain your nationality. Make sure you're loyal to your base, who's us, because we're the ones funding your position, and you're going to get in with your fez and make things happen for us. The same way a Jew would get in there with his yarmulke and make things happen for everybody. But we know he's really making things happen for Jews. Well, you're going to do that for Moors. What's wrong with that? Same way a Hindu would get in there and do what he doing for the Hindu community, but for everybody. Wink, wink. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's up with that? What's wrong with that? Nothing. That's what we should have been doing. instead of shaming niggas for trying to get in. Because what happens is when these Negroes get in, they become the most loyal lapdogs for the system, while everybody else is milking it for their own people's benefit. That way, now you create legislation to make sure you're the first state in the world to recognize Moorish Americans and their specific thing or whatever. And then it just catches on. And now we got lobbyists in the situation that's now opening up the doors for the rest of us. Same way they did for the LGBTQ people. That's what they do. They take their little group, they act like they better than everybody else. Everybody got to bend to them, right? Right? They extort and blacklist and they extort and blacklist people and cancel people and try to destroy people's life. Gay people didn't do that when I was growing up. They wasn't out here trying to stop people from eating. I ain't never seen no gay people like that. Like, bring back the old ones. Bring back the Sylvester gay people. The ones that just wanted to party and go into their little, you know what I'm saying? Go into their little communities and do their thing, man. I got mad respect for them because they created, they saved themselves. They switched their whole culture up to combat AIDS. Niggas ain't do that yet to combat violence. They switched their whole culture up. You know what I'm saying? We ain't do, heterosexual people ain't do none of that yet. We ain't do none of that yet. We don't know how to maintain basic relations. Niggas is still cheating. Me and the Queen just watched something where this dude went so crazy for being bombarded from having his children taken from both of the women that he with, both his baby moms. He went pop both of them and himself. And himself. Not everybody not everybody is equipped to deal with the white man like that. And when people try to use him as a arm against one another, this is why these things happen. He was totally wrong, but he was totally right too. I can't judge him. You know what I'm saying? I've been in a situation. Any melanated man in America who want to be there for his children has been in that situation. Are you crazy? That's part of the Egyptian curse of having your firstborn taken from you. What you think? What do you think is happening? You know what I'm saying? Like this, we still in it. But guess what? As much as you a Hebrew, guess what? You ain't never read about no pyramids in the Bible. You know what I'm saying? You ain't never read about no Sphinx in the Bible. You ain't never read about and then in real life, you ain't never seen no evidence of nobody being in bondage in them places. The way that you're talking about it. So somebody lying. On your screen right now, I'm showing you Granada. This is Granada. This is it. Older than the one over there. Over there, that's just another part of it. Because remember, all of these buildings, all of these things were connected. The disconnect come with the corporations that was functioning under the name of the crown and this and that switched over this up. This is right here, the base of the Mississippi. And how we was getting it. It wasn't no Spaniard-looking Siberian, Mongolian people. Come on, man. I showed you what the Scythians looked like. There was nobody in Eurasia older than them there. So everything else is capped. So all of this anti-Moorishness that I be seeing so-called black people getting in, but these are the same black people that want to be Yoruba, that want to be this, want to be everything else, want to be everything. Want to be everything so they can be nothing. That's a saying. You don't give your children everything. You give them just enough. You give them everything, right? You don't give them everything. You just give them enough to do something. You hear what I'm saying? You give them enough to do something. But if they don't do nothing, then that's on them, man. That ain't got nothing to do with you. Especially if they done seen you toiling, working every day, out here busting like, look, God forbid this nigga more don't turn out how he's supposed to do. He's seeing me and his mother out here busting our ass every day. doing things we don't feel like doing and all of that. Like, he better turn into something. Because if not, that's on him. Because I know the work that we've put in with no help. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, none. So, as Allah is the witness, this is why. Because some of us can't trust our children with our own family. So what does that say about us? It says that we come from horrible circumstances that need to be rectified within a generation. But it's not going to be the generation that's out here now, that's on TikTok, that's going into the metaverse, that's going into space. It ain't going to be this gen, it ain't going to be them. So, like I said, it has to be those of us that have the foresight to be able to put down something and start dealing with real stuff. Like I've been looking into legacy banking with life insurance. Basically cashing in and banking in on yourself, where there is no other third party but you and that policy and what you do and how you bet against, how you leverage against it and all of that. Like, there's white people that have one insurance policy that's paying for the other one. And they just pay the premium on the one that's paying the other one. This is how they freaking it. And then using that as a sign of that upstate actual credit. And then using that then to leverage other stuff. When you ever heard a financial advisor talk to you about that? First thing they start talking to you about how high the interest rate gonna be, how much you're gonna have to pay, how much the tax gonna be, right? They don't talk to white people like that. And there's nobody more white than a North African, according to the SS5 form, that says the white men come from the white people who descend from white, come from the original peoples of Europa. I just showed you who the original peoples of Europa is. I just showed you who that is. That's you. Don't you got an English name? Ain't your name English? Ain't England and Europe? All right then. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You just got the Moorish thing on it, and that's what puts it at the top of the thing. They just got it at the bottom. But we at the top of the bottom. You know what I'm saying? Like, real talk. Like, we're really at the top of the bottom. So we just gotta work it out, man. And start, like I said, man, start establishing these religious societies in the home base, and then using these home base to establish an equity base, and then creating a body politic that would then establish a form of network. Like, I know Moors that have actually been put in city council and stuff like that. Big up brother Kenneth L. He's a perfect example. And they tried to run him out of there when he wouldn't accept the whole homosexual agenda they were trying to put on him, then trying to make him look crazy. But behind the scenes, they telling him, "Oh, we sorry. We know we was bugging, but what can we do?" Because they all be impressed by the mob. But the only mob today are the same people acting like they're the ones that's the most marginalized, because through them, the transhumanist agenda is the most active. That's the only reason why. It didn't work with the gay thing, so they got to go with the trans thing. It didn't work with the whole thing, so they got to work with the new thing. So that's why I'm showing you this on your screen before we close out. These are the Moors. This is how they said, this is basically how they said they seen us. Look, these two Moors in the front. Two Moors in the front. It's supposed to be one of the idols, or one of the grand idols that we had, or whatever. I think this is one of the giants that the niggas stuffed or some shit. They stuffed or whatever, taxidermy, and just put up. Look at these Moors. Look at these turbans. Look at these fezzes. Look at these burnouses. Like, what? 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 Look at this opulence. Look at these columns. Look at the castles in the back. Like, what are they talking about? Look at the drapery. Look at the tapestry. Look at the sages. Like, well, come on, B. Everybody, look at the Moors. Look at these Indians. No, these Moors, these ancient Moors, these ancient Mauritanians here in America. Look at this one with the cane. In the other book, there's a close-up on these two talking as well. Look, coming from far and wide into the Grand Hall. Looking like they inside of this. So again, don't let them tell you that they built them buildings during the exposition, the exposition world fairs and all that. They just built all of that out of plaster and just blew it up in a month. Like, look, man. Cry me a river, bro. Like I said, the Hebrew, okay, we're Hebrews, that's cool. We are to a degree, but we're more Moors, we're more Canaanites. We're more Moabites. That's why we have the distinction. That's why we call ourselves that, for a reason. Because the Hebrews and all of that was the stuff that came out after. Like I said, the reason why we brought it into the situation because of the Hebrews to bring it up is keeping the ancient names is what allows you to keep that ancient connection. So like I said, when the Iranians decided they weren't going to be persons or from Perse no more, that's when they doomed themselves. That's why they're about to go to war with them right now. Like I told you last week, Israel has already started sorties and stuff against them. So also, we're in the time of the Lord of Misrule. So look this up. The Lord of Misrule was the one that was brought in at Rome at a time when it was going through cataclysm or going through great upheaval. And what he was done, he was basically made the Lord for a certain amount of time. And in that, he was given a crown and they went through revelry for months where he would just create things that just didn't make sense. And everybody had to go along with it. Whoever didn't go along with it would be killed or ostracized or whatever. Sounds familiar, right? And at the end of the Lord of Misrule festival, well, the way that it wound up ending was that one of the Romans emperors, kings, got so upset that everybody was doing this and not being productive and going back to work that he had to put an end to it. So he put a thing in it that the end of the festival came when the Lord of Misrule was killed. So don't be surprised if they flip something with your man in the new year or whatever, in the fake fiscal new year leading up to March, where they try to make it seem like, you know, he up out of here. Now they got to put the bed winch in there. You know what I mean? So that's something to look out for. This engine right here, this combustible engine was one of the engines that was functioning on the free energy, functioning on the gold and mercury. I actually used this design in the new book that's coming out for one of the scenes, one of the characters. So to show and prove that, and you see the wings with the horse. So Pegasus, whenever you see the horse with the wings, when you see the lion with the wings, that's gold and silver. When you see the horse with the wings, that's red mercury and gold. You know what I'm saying? What's the name of what? Yeah, so with Victor Emmanuel, this is Constantine the Great, who is Victor Emmanuel's direct ancestor. Constantine the Great and the Council of Nicaea, again, all melanated people. There was no white males calling the shots and all of that, the way we know them today. They were white. If anything, they were white in status. This, again, is a depiction of Constantine from the House of Savoy, which is the modern house that Victor and the Ethiopian houses and them was a part of. Okay? So we got to stop making like Christianity was enforced on us by white people. Yes, in America, it was that towards a certain period, but the whole thing was a means to an end to disassociate us from our original land, things like that. Okay? So lastly, as we close out, just to give you some more perspective, this time is actually the antediluvian time, is the time before this modern time that we're in now. But those dark ages ended, in my opinion, in the year 900, which happened to be the year 1900 to everybody else. That was now imposed on us, because this was the year that the 1000 became the bedrock. Okay? So as we close out, this is where we allegedly are. And then this is the stuff that lies outside. Again, this is just a depiction of what potentially lives outside the basis of what we know to be reality. But our reality, wrong or right, tends to exist in this realm right here. When you see them shoot themselves up into space, and then the rocket starts to scrape something blue, that blue that is scraping, that's the firmament. That's not space. Nobody's going into space. I have ceased to believe in space the way that they've depicted it, based upon how I'm doing analysis to this stuff. But that's me. You know what I'm saying? I think I provided enough evidence to show that it's at least a possibility. Because what they perceive as space can't be if they can't even get to the moon. Matter of fact, look out for the other Halle Berry movie coming out called Moonfall, which is them going into the moon to show that it's actually a device, which is what I wrote about in my book as well, which is interesting. Okay. Lastly, this is them. So again, Noah was the demarcation for whatever reason, because that. But what I'm telling you is that if the year 7, look, 930, 912, 955, 910, 964, 77, look at that. These technically are years. So much of what we perceive as the biblical time or the ancient time or the classical period was everything before 1900. And if you think about it, everything before 1900 was considered primitive or thing or ancient, right? So that means that the deluge, the flood that destroyed everything, was really 1,000 years ago, which really is 999 years ago, if we understand that the 1,000 don't exist. You understand what I'm saying to you? That then means that if the devil was given 2,000 years to rule, it means that we're at the end of that rule of this devil right now. You understand what I'm saying? Time is at hand. It's here. We're already in it, and we're the first ones to know, because we know that in the basic calendar it's 1021, in the Moorish calendar it's 1441, in the Asiatic calendar it's 15,602, and then in the Ethiopian calendar I think it's 12,000 something, 1,200 something. But in their fake reality, in the satanic year, because that's the Gregorian calendar is. The satanic calendar is the Gregorian calendar. See? That's why it says we're all born into sin. Because the dating process that they use to calculate us is satanic. Or let's say not, if we use sin to mean Satan, but sin actually means moon. So that which is brought in by the dark or the moon, which also relates to crypt, which is why cryptocurrency has to now be mainstream, you see? So lastly, Amaru, home of the northern Semites. That's us. While the which is the of the Chaldee, the name of the country means light. To the Semite living in the east, Babylonia, it also meant evening, darkness, west, because Amaru or Uru, like Thor has the Uru hammer made of Uru metal, or the language Urdu, right, which is the ancient Indian, which is Morish, the ancient language of the noble Moors, Urdu, was the land of the west, or of the sunset, i.e., the land going in of the sun. I.e., look, and this is how it is, or was. So they flipped it. You understand? They flipped it. So this also applies to the country. You understand? So at one time, Pennsylvania was in the western portion of the country, and California was the eastern portion. See? But today it's flipped. So that's where we at, Morse. Anybody have any questions?